Hey, it's Kevin and Taylor, and this is super exciting for us because this is the first time we're meeting Ann Wilson.
Yay.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
This
Welcome,
is a blast.
man. Yeah.
I have a really fun compliment for you. You were recently opening for a country artist in Atlanta at the Coca-Cola Roxy, and a good friend of mine, Cammie, she took her daughter Lacey as her Christmas gift. They rushed over, they saw you, and then they left.
Oh, that's so
They were only there for you. That's all they cared about. So, yeah, you are very well loved, and we're excited to get to know you a little better.
Well, we want to hear about the new album and expanding to an even bigger audience than you already have right now. But first, tell us about how you got your start. How did everything start for you with your music career?
So I started my music career when I was 15 years old in 2017. My brother was killed in a car accident. He was tragically hit by another car and died at the scene. And he was 23. He was like the most incredible person I've ever known. He was the best big brother. And my life pretty drastically changed when that happened. Obviously, my whole life was just kind of, I don't know, it's like this perspective really shifted in my life of going like what really matters now. And with the time I have left on this earth, like what am I going to do with my life? Am I going to glorify God? Am I going to worship Him? Am I going to be angry with Him and resent Him towards it? And so I decided to trust God through that season, and it kind of made a conscious decision to go, Jesus, I'm going to trust you through this loss of my brother. As hard as it is to trust you right now, I'm going to choose to do so. And that's really when He started to open doors like that I would have never dreamed. I wanted to be an astronaut, and I wanted to work for NASA.
No kidding.
Get out.
Wow.
Yes.
Like you were set. That was what you wanted to do.
Yes. Like literally wanted to do that like so much. And then when Jacob died, I had never sang in front of anyone before. I didn't have any desire to do music. And I was actually downstairs at my piano singing What a Beautiful Name by Hillsong, that worship song.
Yeah.
And my mom comes in the room, and she had been listening to me. And I thought I was by myself in the house, but she'd been listening to me. And she was crying her eyes out, and she was like, Ann, I had no idea you could sing. Like, where is this coming from? And she, long story short, she asked me to sing at the funeral. So I sang.
Wow, that took so much bravery.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I sang for the first time in front of anyone at my brother's funeral in 2017. And then that led to me posting a YouTube video, which ended up going viral. That led to me signing a record deal when I was 19 in high school, which was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
And
much.
what did it take you a little while to let go of the astronaut dreams, or were you like, no, this is
Or
where
maybe
God
you
wants
still
me?
have them.
Yeah. You know, there's always Blue Origin, Jeff
Singing
Bezos.
in space.
I know. I think it definitely took me some time to be okay with it. But really for me, it was like just such a perspective shift, because it was like, I want to use my life to glorify Jesus. And for me, it was through music. And it like wasn't, I don't know, the desire kind of left me at that moment when I realized how short life really is, and how life is like a vapor.
Yeah.
And so how can I use my time on this earth to serve Him for whatever time He's given me left, you know?
awesome.
So
Okay, I got to tell everyone, this is a little peek behind the curtains. Okay, so fan of your music, seen you on stage, even though this is the first time I'm meeting you, but you usually have you have some really amazing dresses.
Thank you.
So to meet you in person and realize this big booming voice comes out of this little teeny tiny person, this is so surreal for me, because you even look a little bigger on stage because of your, you look taller.
Yes.
And the outfits.
And the hat.
And
Yeah.
the
The hat
hat.
gives you a good foot.
Yeah, it's like, this is so y'all don't realize she is so petite. She's so adorable. And speaking of being petite, you have a petite new puppy in your life. You got to tell us about
Annie Oakley.
No way.
Yes, she's 10 months old. She's a cockapoo. She's the cutest thing ever.
Aww.
She's so sassy and like bratty and like always getting into trouble, and it's good for me. I feel like it's like testing my patience. So it's like that's how I acted as a kid. So it's almost like God's giving me what my parents had to deal with. in a dog.
What do you call her?
I call her full name, Annie Oakley.
So
Every
she's-
time.
Yeah.
Annie Oakley, get over here.
Yes, yeah.
Is she going to go on the tour bus with you and stuff?
Unfortunately, we tried that, and she just can't. Like, she is so anxious. She just shakes all over. Like, she just can't do it. So we tried. We were really hoping, but it's not
That
going to
she'd
work.
be this mascot.
Be
for
the road
whole
dog.
Yeah,
tour.
I know.
Yeah.
And my whole band like loves her. Everybody loves her, and fans would get to meet her and stuff like at the shows. But it's just not gonna work anymore.
So tell us about the new direction there. I don't know if it's a new direction or maybe just a progression of the direction that you're going with the latest record.
Yeah. So obviously started in Christian music in 2019. 2021. Sorry, y'all. My numbers are all over the place. 2021 with My Jesus.
Yeah.
And before then, I had written 150 songs. And I was in like a development deal with my label. So from 17 to 19, I was being like developed and writing songs and kind of figuring out who I wanted to be as an artist. Do I want to do like Christian pop, Christian like country, like what direction do I want to go in? And I had just been writing and writing, and I just never felt like I was finding anything I loved until COVID happened. And I went back home to Kentucky where my granddad owns a farm. And I was sitting by the grave where my brother's buried. He's buried at the farm. And I just started to listen to old country music, and I just felt like God was showing me, like, this is the direction you're supposed to go in, is to not leave behind your roots of where you're from. Growing up in Kentucky, you're supposed to continue on with that, but also, like, you know, all about Jesus. So I started to write songs in that direction, and a little bit of, like, a Zach Williams inspiration, a little bit of, like, a Crowder inspiration. And then that's really when My Jesus came about, and all the songs off that album. So then I started to realize once I released those songs that people were messaging me saying, hey, we're not Christians, but we love the sound of your music because it's country. So we listen to your music, and it's led us to Jesus because it's like we're not even intentionally listening to the lyrics. And then once we start listening to the lyrics, it's been leading us to God. And I got so many messages about that. And it was just really cool to see the doors that were opening. And then about 2 years ago, as we were preparing for this new album, I was in scripture a ton. I was reading the word, and I felt like God was just kind of showing me this idea of rebel, of him being a rebel, how Jesus would go against the crowd. He would hang out with the least of these, the prostitutes, the sinners, the tax collectors, how he, like the Pharisees and the Sadducees, like they had all these, you know, they knew every bit of the Torah and they knew scripture like the back of their hand, but yet they were missing all of what Jesus was doing in his heart behind it all. And so it really like fired me up to want to go share the gospel with the world and to stand firm in that, to not back down on what I believe in, to not change who I am to fit country radio, but also not to change who I am to fit Christian radio.
Yeah.
And it was like, I can only be who I am authentically. That's all I can do. That's the best I can do. And so Rebel kind of became this whole album, and all the songs, you know, there's some very country songs on there, and then there's also some very worship songs on there, and it's all authentically me, and I feel like I view it as just kind of giving me a bigger audience to share the gospel with people.
Yeah. And does that ever get, like, what's that like at a country show where the lyrics are so spiritual? Maybe what you say in between the songs, is it ever a little nerve-wracking, or was it at first?
It was. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I had a show opening for Morgan Wallen and Coetzel. I don't know if you know anything about Coetzel, but we are night and day different. And I was so nervous. I was, like, shaking all over, and I remember, like, being like, how am I going to get up and talk about Jesus? Like, I do not feel like I can do this. And I immediately thought of the disciples and how each of them sacrificed so much. Each of them were, you know, had horrible deaths for Jesus and like stood up for him. And I remember thinking, like, this is like, first of all, nothing compared to what the disciples went through. And also this is it. This is what being a Christian is being willing to share about Jesus when you don't feel comfortable to do so. So ever since then, I feel like I've gotten used to it, but it is hard sometimes. Sometimes country crowds will kind of just look at you like, what are you talking about? You know? Like,
I can feel that reaction.
You can feel
when it's
it.
live.
You can feel it. I can see it. I do not change my sets. They're the exact same. So if you come see me opening for like Casting Crowns or I'm opening for a country artist, it's the exact same set. Like, we don't change anything.
Very cool.
And so that's been interesting too. Just like the response is very interesting.
Yeah.
But it just reminds me of like why I'm on this path and why I'm doing what I'm doing.
That's so exciting. I know everybody's so behind you too.
Yeah.
Because it's such
Absolutely.
a neat opportunity. Yeah.
So your song Milestones, super vulnerable. Talk a little bit about that song.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we ended up putting it on the album because we were kind of back and forth about it. But, you know, I'm only 22, and so I feel like my life has just gone so fast since my brother passed away, and I feel like I just got to this point last year when I was writing the album where I realized I had missed so many milestones for my career. And I think no matter what you do for a living, not just being a singer, but any job, you have to sacrifice, you know, and miss milestones with your kids and your spouses and your families. And for me, it was kind of like this moment of realizing that I just can't keep doing that. Like, I don't want to get to the end of my life and go, well, I missed all these milestones just to be on stages in front of people, you know? And so kind of balancing how much time do I give to my job and how much time do I pour into people, but also like taking time to pour into myself and making sure I'm spiritually fed as well, and not missing big milestones with my family. And because my brother died, like I have a perspective of that. Just, you never know when it's going to be your last day, you know?
And along those lines, I mean, what do you like to do when you do have a rare chance to have some downtime and just
Interviews with radio personalities.
I know she has a day off today. She's doing this for us, which is so nice of you. Like,
Doesn't everybody?
What does it look like when you're like, oh yes, I have like a week off, or what do you like to do?
Most of the time, just be with my family. My family lives in Kentucky still, so they're 4 hours away, and I live in Nashville. So I like to be with them. You know, we'll go to the farm in Kentucky, or they'll come visit here, and just honestly spending time with family is
Okay, when you say go to the farm, are
Yeah.
you working the farm or are you hanging at the farm?
we hang at the farm.
Oh, good.
Yes, we used to have a ton of animals on the farm, and now there's only like a few horses. And like we have someone, my granddad has someone that like manages the horses because we're literally never there.
Yeah.
It's 5 hours from Nashville. It's very far away. It's so hard to get there and back in a day, you know. So we normally just go. We will we'll fish on the farm. We'll hunt a little bit sometimes. We also just literally like to shoot guns for fun, you know, with clay pigeons.
Thus your dog being named Annie Oakley.
Okay, I have a tip for you. When you're doing these country concerts where you don't feel like maybe it's your crowd, just mention that.
Yeah, totally. I have done that.
Got any people like shooting guns in here? Great.
I got to ask too, you told the story about how you didn't even know you had this gift for singing. Your mom discovered it. Did you have a gift and a love for fashion before you became an artist? Like, your outfits are amazing.
Thank you.
Did
All
pick
that
them out, or
credit
did you
is my sister. I can't take
Get
any
out.
of it.
That's so
Yes,
neat.
I've never had an eye for fashion. I literally had nothing to do with that. And my sister is actually a clothing designer. She designs clothes herself.
Oh, wow.
And sells them, and she has a factory in India that makes all of her clothes. She has a clothing business.
Wow.
And she started that when she was about 13. She would just sketch things
out.
like on
13.
paper.
That's
Yeah, and then
incredible.
she started an Etsy shop, and things started to sell out quickly on Etsy, and then she eventually found this factory. And then once my music started, she was like, I want to come on board and like basically help you like kind of come up with your branding and your style. And so she picks out all my clothes for me.
No kidding.
That's
Yes,
so
it's
fun.
so fun.
That's
Because
cool.
I don't mind wearing great clothes, but I couldn't pick them out myself. So that's great
Yeah.
that your sister does that for
I
you.
know.
So if your sister's looking to take on more clients,
Yes, I will let her know.
I could use all the help I can get. Yeah.
You look
Oh,
great.
that's awesome. Well, also, while we've got you, we want to hear more about Hey Girl Nation. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So it started off with my song "Hey Girl" that I had written back in 2021, I think, with Matthew West and Jeff Pardo. They're like my two favorite songwriters. We write on this last album on Rebel. Matthew wrote 14 out of the 16 songs with me, and Jeff wrote 13 out of the 16. So we worked closely together, and so I had like been struggling a lot with my identity. Like I struggled a lot in middle school and high school. Girls were so mean, and there was always so much jealousy and like comparison, and then especially with social media and the world that we live in today, just always feeling like I wasn't good enough and wasn't worthy. And so I really wrote that song for myself, but also for girls to like remind them of their identity in Jesus. Yeah. And it slowly started to, I remember I had this one show in South Carolina at a church, and I had never had necessarily like little girl fans before. Like that wasn't a thing. And all of a sudden I look up, and when I got out on stage, and all on the stairs leading up to the church, onto the stage at the church, there were children of all ages, little kids, little girls. And I remember like seeing this vision of what God was doing with little girls and how can I steward that. And so got together with my team, and we started Hey Girl Nation, which is basically kind of a platform that girls can come together of all ages to be reminded of their identity. We've partnered, and we're slowly but surely partnering with organizations that help women out of sex trafficking and prostitution and teach them about Jesus. And so we're really getting into all of that as well, just furthering this idea of how can I continue to have a platform that helps women of all ages. And I feel like girls in the world that we live in today, it's just so easy to struggle with identity. You know, the world's always trying to tell us who we are and to follow the crowd and to be like the world, but like being like Jesus is such a different thing in this world that we live in. So Yeah,
Wow,
it's been cool to
fantastic.
see.
We can't wait to see
Fantastic
how
message,
it just
yeah.
continues to grow.
you.
So that's
Yeah.
great that
I'm
you're using your
excited.
platform that way.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
And thanks for coming in and spending time with
Yeah,
us.
thanks
Ann
for
Wilson,
having me.
everybody.
Yeah.